Well, hey, everybody. Great to see you. Hope you had a great weekend. I had a fantastic weekend. One of my very good friends' daughters had a bat mitzvah, so it was the first time that we have really all gotten back together and had fun inside. So it was just really refreshing. It was a great weekend. I'm still dragging a little bit. I've actually had a little extra caffeine to get me through my Monday. But it's been a great weekend, and now we are off to a fantastic week. I am so excited about today's guest. I love when I have an international guest. This is only the second time that I've gotten to do it. So I want you to help me welcome Marianne Avery. She is a customer experience professional, a diehard customer champion, and a social media consultant who helps businesses to drive culture and customer experience change, as well as navigating the world of social media. Marianne and I have a lot in common as far as loving Twitter and serving as the voice on Twitter of different brands. So we're going to talk a lot about Twitter today, and I'm so excited to welcome her. Marianne, welcome.
Hello everybody. Nice to be here. I love that international guest. It sounds very exotic.
My international, all the way from Kentucky to England. I'm so excited to have you. And Marianne and I were discussing before, my roots are from England. My grandfather was from Manchester, which sounds like it's not very far from where you live. So I love having you here, and I get a little taste of what my grandfather must have sounded like when he didn't get to know him. Anyway, I'm so happy that you're here. We met on Twitter, as I've met so many of my great social media friends, and we have the same kind of passion about that platform and how, not just how fun it is, but how useful it is and how important it is for branding. So let's kind of talk about that. First, I want to know, in your own words, I know I read your bio, but tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are in your career, who you are, and how you got here.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I don't often talk about myself, so I made a few notes so I didn't kind of forget. But I think the best way to describe it is my background has always been in customer service. So I started in the world of contact centres. So I was initially a project manager, and then I moved over into the customer services side of things. And I've always been passionate about the customer and the voice of the customer. My last corporate role, I worked in the customer experience side and led on the Net Promoter Score. So voice of the customer, customer insight was really important in terms of sharing what was going well and perhaps where there were areas for development, and helping to drive that product agenda. And it was a regulated environment I worked in, so driving down complaints was very important. And social media kind of grew as a channel for customer servicing. So that's where I suppose, from a work perspective, social media came into the fore. And I worked very closely with the social media team. At that point, they covered Twitter and Facebook. But then the opportunity to take voluntary redundancy, I grabbed that, and I set up my own business called Socially Maz. So I initially I did management and consultancy, but I'm now sort of leaning more into the consultancy side of things. But I also work with a couple of former colleagues in a kind of a change and culture consultancy. So I think it's really important to have a real blend of things that you do to keep life interesting. So yeah. So that I realise I'm waffling, but that's kind of how I've arrived at where I am today.
Well, I agree. You do have to have not just different revenue streams, but ways to keep yourself interested. You know, you don't want to interesting and interested. You don't want to get bored. You want to continue to have new challenges, new things to learn.
Exactly.
So I know that you've mentioned you've moved more into the consulting rather than the actual doing. Do you enjoy that more? Do you enjoy looking at how to guide other people, or is it just kind of going that way?
It's really interesting when I think about that, because I do like both of them, but I think one of the things that you learn quite quickly as a social media manager is you are never off. So purely from because I have quite a hectic social life, and it sounds like you do as well, Shane. So I've actively made the decision to move more into consultancy, and I've handed off a number of my management clients, but at the moment I just have one quite big one, because I feel passionately that to be able to help people, you need to be doing it yourself. So there's that, I can never think of that phrase. I think if you need to talk the talk, you need to be able to walk the walk. So right. I think as I sit at the moment, that's kind of how I feel, that it's important to be able to use your own experiences and that they not be out of date. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. If you're not constantly practicing, I like to say we practice social media. So if you're not constantly practicing, you don't really know what, you may go on.
You can read a lot of,
right.
there's so many changes, but I think you can't understand them on a day-to-day basis unless you're doing it. Now, I hold my hand up. I don't operate across all platforms. I am a lurker on Pinterest and TikTok.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, I definitely am a consumer of TikTok. I have not yet gotten out there and done my own crazy dances.
Yeah, it's probably the same with you. There are people in my network who specialize in those platforms. Yes. So if I get an inquiry, I route somebody that way, because I could learn about it and start experimenting, but I think it's better to work that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what do you really mean by being a die-hard customer champion? What does that mean to you?
Well, it means that you are, I think it comes back to my customer experience background. So it's putting yourself in the customer's shoes. So it's so important to listen to what your customers are talking about, what they're talking to you about, what they're talking about in their communities. And that, to me, is the sort of the core of it. But it's also when somebody, and I don't like to be negative, but I think because of years in financial services and it's all about managing complaint volumes and making improvements, I naturally lean towards when somebody's having an issue, I want to try and help them. And so it's about how to listen to them. So for example, the large client that I'm working with at the moment, I make suggestions to them and they've added people to their team because I've identified that there's a gap. So we've expanded the team to help with particular customer issues or pain points across the customer journey. So that's kind of how I sort of see it, if that makes sense.
That's great. That's great. And to tie back into Twitter, Twitter really from the beginning has been a great one-to-one customer service type of engagement platform. If I have a problem, I know if I tweet them, I'm going to hear back from them much faster than I am if I email them, let's say. So being that champion of those customers and being active on Twitter means you know how to respond to them, you know where to find them, and you know how to listen for what their concerns are so you can help them.
Yeah, and voice of the customer is really important. Those sort of snippets can make a big difference in terms of what is going on, what people are saying, what they're thinking, what they're loving, and what they're perhaps not loving.
Right, exactly. So let's talk about Twitter. I know you and I have a lot in common as far as building personality, either for ourselves or for our brands, and really making sure that we've got good conversation going on Twitter. So one of the challenges that I'm having, I have this fantastic client, and he's got more than 40,000 followers on Twitter. Now, for a long time before I came on board, it was a lot of pushing. It was a lot of, here's my thought for the day. There you go. And so I came on and we've been doing a lot more engagement. Our engagement numbers are just through the roof, really talking about conversation and sharing not just this is my philosophy, but what do you think about my philosophy? How do you implement it? So we do a lot of questions and answering. One challenge we're having is he's losing followers and he's not gaining followers. Now, you and I both know it's not about follower numbers. It's never been about follower numbers. It's always about engagement. That being said, there is some credibility with someone at that level with a large follower number. So my question to you is, how would you handle this? And would you focus on growing the followers and how? And please don't say you'd buy followers because we don't do that.
No. So just as a quick aside on the buying followers, I had a potential client approach me and I was looking at their account and I was like, you've got no engagement. Did you buy followers? Oh, yes. Anyway, right. So people are obsessed with follower numbers, but anyway,
right.
I kind of my approach is I've got kind of like 6 things that I would look at. Okay. So the first one is reaffirm with them what their goal is, because I'm sure it's not follower numbers, is it? So no, is it about brand awareness? What is it that they are on Twitter to do? So reconfirm with them what that is, because it's kind of like a communication process with them, isn't it? To reiterate what they're about and going back to, I hate that phrase, back to basics, but that's kind of what I was thinking. The next one is the content plan, because you've talked about how you engage. So it's making sure there's a plan in place. You've got your content buckets or themes, depending on what terminology you like to use. Another one is, and I'm sure you're doing this, but it's about being there, being present. So it's making sure that you are you're engaging with what's trending where it's relevant. Mm-hmm. It's also making sure that you are, whatever the routine is, that you are making sure that you're responding to the mentions and any messages. So being I call that being present. The other one is, and I do fall foul to this myself, but don't use what in the UK we would call clickbait. I don't know what you perhaps call it over there. So like a sensational headline. I'm always one where they show a picture of, oh, look what this person looks like now, and I click and I'm on to like 10 pages, and I'm like, no, you've got me there with clickbait. So yeah, none of that, because that irritates people. Don't be spammy.
Right.
So that horrible sliding into the DMs. And then it's the final one is what I call having the right mix. I know there's always lots of debate, but how often in the content are you selling or promoting whatever the service or the offer is? My thoughts is it should be 10 to 20%.
Yeah.
You look at some feeds and it's continual. So they're kind of like my 6 things, but then overarching all of that is looking at the analytics. So what is it that is working? Do more of that. I mean, I know it sounds very basic, but that I think it applies to every platform that you're looking at. But also, what are the trends? How are you monitoring who is leaving? Mm-hmm. Is it after particular campaigns, for example? I mean, I know on one of the clients that I've worked with, they've had problems with bot followers. So where there's removal, it can impact the follower numbers. So that's kind of my snapshot. I'm sure you're doing all of those things, but I don't know if there's anything there that you're thinking.
I'm glad to know. I am. You and I think the same way. We must be learning from the same people. But yeah, I mean, I think that what's important is that we definitely keep that content push piece down to 10 to 20%, and way more of it is conversational. So what I am finding is that the engagement piece is going up, the percentage is going up, and we've got more followers who are more likely to engage with us, which in my book, I'm sure in your book, way more important than the actual.
Well, there's a saying, isn't there? 100 engaged followers is better than 1,000 unengaged followers.
Absolutely. Well, it's good to know I'm on the right track. And we think alike.
You have to let me know what happens, because I think it's back to that goal, isn't it? What I think you said it's a he. What is he there to do?
Right, exactly. So we're working on a few strategies that we'll be implementing in the first quarter, but it's good to know, that what I've been advising the team is right. So it's good. I feel good about that. So what's next on the horizon for you, Marianne? Do you have any big clients, any big projects coming up in the first of the year, or just kind of sticking status quo?
It's more or less status quo, but my big client, we're already in Black Friday.
Oh, wow.
So that launched last week. So it's managing all of that. So there's a lot of monitoring of what's products that are going well, what ones perhaps aren't, what copy's working, what isn't working, and then looking at it across all the platforms to see which where we can make any tweaks, basically.
That's wonderful. That's great.
We have a target, so you're always tweaking.
Right, exactly. Always tweaking all day long. Well, this has been wonderful, Marianne. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your wealth of knowledge. I'm so glad to know you online, and now I know you face to face, which is so great. And one of these days, I'm going to make it back across the ocean to England, and maybe we'll get to meet. That would be
That would be
fantastic.
great. I look forward to, because I don't know Manchester that well, so it would be good to explore.
I would love it. Thank you so much for joining me. I know you are at the end of your workday. It's about 5:15 there, so enjoy your evening.
And thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So everybody make sure that you are keeping up with @SociallyMaz, which is where you can find Marianne. So I'm so happy that we were able to bring you here, and I love getting to know you on social. So I will see you back out there. And for everyone else, thank you so much for joining me. Next week, my guest will be my very old friend. She's not old, but we've been friends for a very long time. Robin Sakula is going to be my guest. So you can follow her at It's Robin with a Y. She is fantastic, and I can't wait to have her on. She's got 3 girls who just her Facebook posts about them sincerely crack me up. But we did meet on Twitter, gosh, maybe 12 years ago. So we've been friends for a really, really long time. And I am looking forward to seeing you then. So until then, keep it real and have a great week. Bye, everybody.